Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dr. Glenn Vo, and I'm super excited to have the founder of Firegang Marketing back with us, Adam Zilko. Adam, what's up,
Good.
man? And we got a special guest today, Ryan. He's actually the director of sales and marketing for Firegang. Ryan, what's up, man?
It's good to be here.
Man, so we're gonna just throw you right in, man. I mean, you're the new guy here on our Facebook Lives. Adam and I have done a few of these, and I want to start off with this question because there's so many marketing companies out there, and Adam has walked us through in Nifty Thrifty about what the big difference is in Firegang. I just want to play the scenario with you. I'm a dentist. I'm looking for someone to do my marketing. I call you up and say, okay, hey Ryan. Hey, it's Dr. Vo down in Dallas, and what do you guys do? So take us through that initial call right there.
Sure. Well, typically what I would say if you were interested in Firegang is I'd say, look, we're a marketing company that works exclusively with dental practices, and we've been doing this for a little over 10 years now. And we've helped practices of all types. So those that are startup practices or buying into a new practice, we've helped multi-locations and kind of everything in between. What we do is all in the digital space. So no like print ads or anything like that, but we bring a fully integrated model to a dental practice when it comes to marketing. And so what I mean by that is we're helping them with everything from A to Z. And so at the front end, we can help practices with all their online visibility, like your online ads, your search engine optimization, your reviews, all that kind of stuff. We do a lot with website development, coding, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. And then on the back end, we help practices with their phones a lot of call tracking and auditing. We'll listen to the calls that are coming into the practice and do a lot of coaching with the staff as well. Because of course it's very important. We need to make sure that the staff's converting. So it's really that kind of full set there. But to really dial it in, if you were asking me, Glenn, I would be, I'd say, turn it around and say, hey, I got a couple of questions for you because I want to dig into your practice, kind of figure out what you need and what you're looking for. And then we can kind of create something more customized, specific for you.
I love that. And thank you so much for humoring me there because, again, there's so many different companies out there. And look, in Nifty Thrifty Dentist, I see different people all the time. They're like, well, I know this guy who DM'd me on Instagram says that he can get me X amount of patients and using these ads and whatnot. And so there's so many people coming at us. It's so hard to figure out who's legit and who's kind of like a guy in his mom's basement doing ads, right? Hard to know. But Adam, I want to give you a chance to talk here.
Yeah,
We've talked about it so much. What Ryan said in the beginning there that kind of stood out is that you guys have been doing this for a while. So Adam, you being the founder, how long have you guys been at this working with dentists exclusively?
Yeah, it's been over 10 years. But when we talk about an integrated approach, it's I view us as a revenue generation company, and it's and I know you and I have talked about that prior into kind of the steps that companies have gone through over the years to get there.
Now explain this. What's the difference between a revenue generation company? Because then so many people in the marketing world, they're like, well, we're going to get you some leads. It's almost like I'm a lead generation company. So what's the difference between those two things right there?
Yeah, so there's
other than money in your pocket.
What's that? Other than
money in your pocket, right?
Well, so back when marketing started, you had everyone that when marketing online kind of was hitting hitting the ground, you had everyone basically talking about rankings, right? You remember that we're going to get you ranked, and we're going to get you on the first page of Google, and that was kind of the thing. And then it got into lead gen, and actually a lot of people are still there. They talk about lead gen. We're gonna get people to reach out to you. And really, what I'm getting at is what are our KPIs? What is our focus? And then the next thing after that was new patients, right? So how many new patients were we going to help generate per month? And then it got into an ROI game of like type of patients and whatnot. And then it became revenue gen, which is where we're at. And I don't think anyone's there yet. And to do that, what we've had to do is actually we've hired dental coaches. We are looking at what's going on in the practice with the partnerships of different analytics companies, looking at the data, looking at the operations, looking at what else is happening, so that when we're sending these leads and we're converting them and helping to convert them into patients, we're making sure that we're taking full advantage of the entire process. And if there's something that's awry or not working right, we can help resolve that, or send in a coach that can help resolve that. The thing is when we view ourselves as a revenue generation company, we're aligning our KPIs with what in most cases is the most important piece of any business, which is driving that revenue. And so it sets a higher bar for us, though, because we do kind of evolve out of a marketing company, because now we're focused on so much more, because anyone can just throw you out on Google, throw out a website and call it a day. But if our focus is to help drive that revenue of that practice even further, then we're looking at so many other things. We've got more levers we can begin to pull, but we have to be smarter about it too. We have to know the industry much better, and that takes more resources internally on our end and more knowledge on our end, and really creating processes and systems that can help dental practices get to that point. And so this is why, like I said, we employ dental coaches, but we also partner with a lot of coaches as well, because if a practice has their own coach, we would rather them keep it, because they're going to have that relationship and those processes in place and so on. And that's why we work so well. But that's also why we work so well in the DSO space with massive group practices, is because they're very business minded, and so are we. We're looking at the same things. Their goals are our goals, and when we're talking shop, we're talking the same numbers. We're focused on the same outcomes, and we're looking at the same things. And so it's that mindset that gets us all to the same place, except that we're moving there quicker, and we're not just stopping at leads, and we're not just stopping at rankings, because if you do, then everything else can fall apart.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I want you to hold that DSO thought there, because we talked before we jump on air about some of the wins that some of your DSO clients has had, and how does that like relate to some of these single practice owners, how those DSO wins can translate to them. But Ryan, I want to come back to you, because you said something that kind of caught my attention there, and you were like, look, we're going to actually help you deal with the calls, and with these leads coming in, we're going to help you work those leads or work those new clients in there. And I was thinking to myself, most people would think, hey, I thought you were just doing some ads for me, man. Like, what's all this other stuff too? Why is that so important? Like, why is it so important that you take it past the, okay, we're doing the ads and we're doing the SEO and we're managing your Google ads to, hey, actually, we want to make sure that we get these people in the door and whatnot. So why do you guys take that extra step there? Because I think people get confused about that.
Yeah, of course, it's extremely important that we look at this all the way to the end, right? And like Adam's talking about here with generating revenue, when that's kind of our North Star, we need to look at all the different pieces that allows us to get there. And if as a marketing company, we just end and say, oh, we got you 100 calls this month, we did our job. Well, what if we didn't make any money on those calls, right? We need those to actually become patients coming into the practice. And I talk to a lot of dentists, talking to dentists every single day, those that are calling us up, asking us about our marketing services. And one of the questions I ask them all the time is, do you just really generally, hey, do you have a pulse on how well your staff does at the front? And the answer I get more than anything is, well, I overhear them every once in a while. And it's like, that's not a data-driven way to analyze this. Like
let me ask you this. Right? How often do you hear that though?
Oh man, it's all the time.
I mean, is it really that often that they're like, I think they're doing something. I think they're talking to them. Like, how often? Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All the time.
And when you do work with a client and they've come from that kind of experience where, okay, this other company they work with was just sending them leads and they weren't really tracking how they weren't even tracking it, or let's say weren't even training their team how to nurture it. But once they become in your ecosystem, what have you seen? Like, what are some of the results you get when you actually show them like the right way to handle that?
I can speak to that, but what's also funny, Glenn, is that I can almost tell you predictably what someone's revenue is just based on how they answer the questions in our assessment.
Really?
If somebody says, absolutely. If they say, oh, I think the front desk is doing X, Y, and Z, we know they're not tracking it. That means that there's likely other things they're not tracking and that they don't know why they need to be. And so they've got a lot of holes in their bucket, and it's likely causing revenue to just fall out the backside. So anyway, so I didn't mean to cut you off on that.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's again, it's funny when we talk about it, but there's truth there. And it's like, I mean, how many, people are, so many practices are putting so much money in their marketing, right? They're putting money into the ad spend and the agency fee, and it's almost like you get that close and then you just don't. It's almost like you're doing a dental procedure, and the last part of the filling where you have to put the curing light on to make everything set, you do everything and then you just like walk off, right? He's just like, yeah, whatever, it'll seal up on its own, I'll walk off.
Just like in dentistry, Glenn, I mean, after 10 years, you see the same, like, when you sit down and talk to somebody what their issue is, even before you probably x-ray their mouth, or you can ask them some questions about what's going on, and you've seen it so many times across so many patients that you just know. Every now and again you get that one off, but it's almost always the same thing. You just know. And we've worked with hundreds of practices, and there's only so many ways to like slice this. And so you see the same thing again and again and again. And then you, on the flip side, is you have so many successes again and again and again, and you know what works. Now, whether or not you can get the office to do what you need them to do, that's like every coach's worst nightmare, right? You got the best coach, but if you can't get that person in the gym to actually exercise, they're not going to get any stronger or eat better or whatever, right? There's like some level of accountability on their end. They got to want it and they got to follow direction. But they do those things, and they're typically going to do much better.
I love it.
I know
so tell me. So we talked earlier. You talked earlier about the that DSO client before we jumped on, right? We were talking about it, and what you told me was like, I had to make you repeat it because I thought I heard it wrong, but you really were saying that. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
let's talk about that and how that relates to the single practice.
So Ryan wasn't on the call at the time. Ryan, the client. So they, we basically just brought in a couple of months back. We were referred by, I think it was Lynn Tao, of all people.
Okay, yeah.
But
shout out to Lynn Tao, the bird eye guy. Shout out to him.
And so he's sent a lot of clients to us because they're just we're killing it for them. But anyway, so he sent us over this DSO, and I think we just finished up on their very first month, and we took we ran the metrics, and what we're seeing right now is a $15 cost per acquisition through paid ads per new patient. It's freaking nuts. And I mean, we just blew their metrics out of the water.
Adam, let me ask you this: what, for those who are not familiar with that, who are not familiar with marketing, what's like considered like a good cost?
If you're getting $100, a lot of times $100 is kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Give or take the type of practice, the type of dentistry, if you're doing fee for service, or if you're doing a higher end like implants or things like that. So that's kind of a rough number, but they were paying with their last marketing company they just left.
Yeah,
I think they were pushing about $100 per patient, and just by bringing us in, we drove that down to 15. I mean, it was like,
wow,
huge difference. I mean, like we're just crushing it. And so, subsequently they just tossed a bunch more locations our way.
I certainly hope so.
And Ryan, you know the practice. We don't need to list their name, but Ryan's the one that actually worked with them and dealt with them. And I don't know what all issues they had, Ryan, when they reached out. Or,
right. So first of all, Ryan, I'm gonna have to ask you this, man. Like, what kind of like marketing magic were you guys doing to get that? Like, I'd love to, and I'm sure for those who are listening right now, you guys probably want to know too. So Ryan, you gotta spill the beans, my friend. We want to know what kind of marketing magic we're using for this group here.
Yeah, I mean, you say marketing magic, but at the end of the day, it comes down to all the stuff we've just been talking about today, right? And it's the fundamentals of this, of we have to have all of these things working together in unison. And it really is like having that integrated approach, right? We have to show up online. We have to have an excellent website that patients can connect with. We need the front desk to be running smoothly, and we've got to get patients all the way to the end and really pay attention to our KPIs at the end. And it's just by putting these fundamentals in place, we can see stellar results. I mean, with this particular client, a lot of it too was redesigning their websites because they looked more, in some cases, more like business cards that was just kind of popped up like, hey, we exist. And that's not going to connect with a patient or really show a patient why they would want to choose that practice versus any other practice, right?
I love that. I love that. And that's the thing too. I think like, you know, a lot of times it's like you're almost there and then you kind of drop the ball over here. Let me ask, and any of you guys can take this question. And I think like, but the doctors are listening right now, they're probably wondering like, well, okay, I have I have a pretty awesome team. What are you talking about, right? But let's say they do have an awesome team, but maybe they're not trained the right way, and you guys see some holes there, right? And again, I love the fact that you guys care so much about your clients that you want to give them that kind of business advice that's helped other offices. You want to give that to them too. How do you guys normally approach that? And for the doctors who are listening, who you know, maybe they're going to work with you guys and maybe they're still working, maybe they're doing it by themselves, maybe they're working with someone else. What can they do to kind of see if their team is actually not dropping the ball in this case when it comes to getting these clients in?
It's just like running anything else in business. If it's not being tracked and measured, it's not, there's no accountability to it, right? So what we have is, we call it Kpi Scorecards. And that's what I would tell anyone to have is, what are the metrics that you should be looking at, and making sure that everyone's on the same page, right? And so internally as a company, we have that, and our leadership team bi-weekly gets on a Monday call together, and they review their numbers as a team. When we sit down with our clients, we map out what the KPI should be and where we're at, and then we explain what we need to do to get there, and why they're not. And so as long as everyone's on that same page, then that's great. But the other thing is that everyone thinks they have a great team, but if you're not measuring it, you really don't know. You know what I mean? Like, and sure, you know, your revenue could be amazing and through the roof, but you still could have some breaks in the process, and it's just through brute force that you're getting ahead. So everything should be tracked and measured, and so then there's a level of accountability to it. And the other thing I'll say to this is that I can't tell you how many times we see that there's staff turnover or something happens in the office, things shift, and people that were once performing really well, or positions that were actively performing really well, tend to slide. And so if nobody's tracking that, then you can go several months to, you know, longer and not realize what the issue is. And with our system, typically we can get ahead of it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we'll go back to an office and I mean, it's been like a week, and we're saying, okay, we're noticing that this person at the front desk, you know, being new, is dramatically fallen off or isn't converting, and they need training right away or coaching right away. Then there's a lot of, you know, cases similar to that in other aspects of what we do, but that's why all these things have to be tracked and measured.
So Ryan, you know, I want to ask you something because, you know, I put you through that first little exercise where, hey, I was a potential client, I was calling in. So, you know, and I did that because I know you work really closely for all these clients that are coming in, and you're on a lot of the sales calls, and you're working with your team to make sure the sales calls are done correctly there. What have you seen from the people who are leaving another company and coming to you guys, or is actually actively looking? Where have you seen like the most issues they were having, right? And I'm not talking about like so much, well, it could be their team related, but is it because like, you know, maybe they're coming in, the website's terrible. Maybe they're coming in and the people who are doing the ads was terrible. Maybe they're coming in and their offers was bad. Like what's like the most common issues that people have when they come to you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what I would say is the number one thing that I see is a lack of differentiation. I typically see that, like, and that kind of trumps everything else, right? It's not just like, oh, the ads were bad, or oh, the website was bad, or our rankings were low, because differentiation can go through all these different points. And so what I mean by that is, if a patient, just if you're watching this now, and as a dentist, I mean, you could look at this and say, hey, I want to go check out my website right now, and then try to view that through the lens of a patient. And if I'm a patient coming to your website, do I immediately know why I should choose you over every other dentist in your area, right? Because competition is so high. I mean, you can have 10 dentists in a 1 mile radius of your practice these days. So what we really want to think about is, how do we really showcase to that patient all these different reasons why I would want to go to you versus that other guy down the street, right? And typically when I go to these guys' websites, or I look at their ads, any of the copywriting, any of the copy that's all over their website, it's very stock. There's a lot of stock imagery, and it reads just like, hey, we're the best dentist in town. we're going to give you a comfortable experience. We've got really capable staff. But at the end of the day, right? Like, it's like, I would hope that you're capable. I hope that you're going to give me a comfortable experience, right? These aren't necessarily things that would separate you from the competition. So as part of our exercise, or as one exercise that we do as we're kind of going through the sales process and they're evaluating us, is I have them just run through a list, and I give them some examples, and I say, hey, here's some really simple things, such as, like, let's say you wanted to be open on the weekends, right? That's something that's a real tangible differentiator, because somebody that's a patient can read that and say, okay, you're open on a Saturday and the dentist next to you is not. That clearly makes you different than that other individual. We can now use that in your marketing, but there's tons of others that are related to financing and insurances, and, you know, like timing when you're open, different ways that you can be more convenient than the guy down the street. And we just kind of work through this process. And by the end of it, it becomes very clear of, okay, we had this big lack of differentiation. Our previous marketing company never tried to figure out what actually made us different. They just put up a bunch of nice looking stock photos on our site, had some ads that kind of read like, hey, we exist, we're a dentist, want to buy, or use really, really, you know, trying to discount their services and give stuff away, all that kind of stuff. So these are typically the things that I see is like the number one thing that we're looking to shift with our marketing.
So Adam, let me kind of pose like the same question to you, you know, like why, and I know, because you and I talk all the time, but I want you to tell the audience, like, why is this cookie cutter system that so many companies out there, whether it be the cookie cutter website, the cookie cutter ad with the same, like the same stock photo that it seems like everyone else uses, it's like the same model over and over. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's like the same smiling person. Like, why is that so detrimental to, you know, someone who's trying to stand out with a crowded market? Like, let's say a crowded market up in Seattle, or a crowded market in Dallas, Texas.
Well, that's just it. Is like, if it's a crowded market and everyone's doing the same thing, which in a lot of cases photo. They are. What's that?
Yeah, like the same stock photo, right? It's the one that everyone sees. The same. It's just a race to
the bottom at that point, right? There's no tangible uniqueness, no actual real differentiation, and so people can see through that. Like, you can't BS people online. This isn't 1996. We know if we're looking at stock images. We know if we're looking at, like, I mean, there's a great book from Malcolm Gladwell called Blink, where you know, people in an instant can tell if something just feels right or not. They can look at something and say, like, some people can look at a picture on the wall and know that it's crooked or something's off, you know, with it. And you see that all the time when you're looking at these websites and the copy and the stock images. When it's all just generic, then there's really no reason for someone to want to proceed with them, and they're not doing themselves any favors. The problem is that people do it because it's cheap, but it's not cheap because it's costing them in terms of new business. And that's just it, right? Like in the industry, right? There's probably people that cut corners in dentistry that are cheap, you know, or you fly out of country and get it really cheap, or you can pay someone who's a specialist that's doing it right. And I think people can see through it, and the data shows that they can, right? The data that we see shows that, you know, improvements in conversion rate and everything else that we do are affected by how we set up these sites, and the fact that we are pushing for original content, we are pushing to differentiate the practice, and we wouldn't do it if it didn't work. And you know, you've talked to enough personally, Glenn, you've talked to enough of our clients. I mean, you know, you've seen stuff from even as recently as Dr. C, Dr. Cochran. I mean, we're crushing it for these guys, and it's because these things are what are needed. It's harder to do though, as a marketing company. It's a lot of hard work, but that's how you get to the better outcome.
Yeah,
There's no shortcuts there.
I love that. I love that. That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that. And, you know, Ryan, so I'm going to ask you this, Ryan. So when potential clients come in, I mean, obviously you guys can't work with everyone, but what would be like an ideal client for Firegang, right? Because again, there seems to be like, same thing, like with every dentist out there, right? There's certain patients that are the patients that you feel that you can take care of, but there's certain patients that unfortunately they're not very compliant. You tell them to do this treatment, they don't want to do it, or maybe they want to put things off, and so a lot of dentists, they make the decision like, okay, well, obviously I want to help you, but because you're not compliant, you're actually hurting yourself, and it's end up going to be a bad situation here. So as dentists, we understand that, right? I'm going to ask you guys, because again, it seems like with you guys, I mean, you guys have a very comprehensive approach. Like you need some interaction with the client. There's some accountability built in and whatnot. So what are some of the things that you guys, kind of expectations that you guys have as far as your clients go? Just answer that. And I'm going somewhere with this that I think is very important, but go ahead, Brian. Like what are some of the expectations that you guys have?
Sure. I'd say I look for two major things. The first is someone who's going to be open to partnership, because it's just like you said, that interaction is extremely important. And of course, there's a lot that we can take off their plate in terms of marketing, and we're going to be running this system for them. But we really want to be in that true partnership with that dentist, because that's when we're going to get the most results. We're not in the practice every single day. There's certain elements of this, like this staff training, where the doctors really got to be on board with making sure that their staff follows through with our training and gets it done, because we can only be the coach so far, right? And if they find that it's important, then they can show that to the staff that, yeah, this is something important and that we want to do. But also that feedback loop is absolutely essential to really understand like what's happening inside the practice. What patients are you seeing? What are you interacting with? How are you interacting with them? And are these the right types of patients that are coming in? And typically, if there are any issues, if we have good communication with the doctor, we can resolve them very, very quickly. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're seeing on our end, but then with some of the communication there, we can resolve things in a very quick manner. The other thing that I look for is a dentist that's willing to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
As Adam was just talking about, like there's things that we've been doing for 10 years, then we do them because we know that they work and we've seen them work and we have the data behind it. And so we're going to want to run these websites in a specific way and these ads in a specific way and do this training in a specific way, because these are really strong fundamentals that we've seen drive success, that get us to that revenue that we're looking for at the end here, that get that cost of a new patient down to $15 a month, right? I want to replicate those results for any doctor that I'm talking to. And the way that we can do that is by utilizing the same fundamentals that worked for these other practices that have been so successful. So someone who's willing to come in and say, I'm going to trust Firegang's process to lead me through this. I want to work with an individual like that.
I love that. Adam, anything to add to what Ryan just said there?
I mean, no, nothing. I mean, I think those are the big things. The only other thing I guess would be is, it's all a process. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't always work perfectly to begin with, and and there's multiple approaches that have to be taken, or time is needed to figure out where that break is. You know what I mean? So somebody comes in and like month one, it wasn't, they didn't just explode with new business. Well, it takes a little bit of time to figure out what is going on. You know what I mean? And so just like Brian said, having that close communication and that partnership to trust the process and trust our feedback on it, we're going to get them there if they work with us. It just is, every practice is different. And, we see stuff at scale, at such a scale. And so, we're looking at this at a macro level, and a lot of these practices, they only see like what's in their own little bubble. And they think maybe that they know better, but they likely don't, because again, we've seen this thousands of times, you know what I mean? And so it's just figuring out, okay, with each practice, what is the issue? If something's not working to plan, and working through that. And that's where that partnership comes into play, because there's always a reason why they're not hitting their goals now, right? And so helping to figure out what that is, and then helping to overcome that just takes time.
And I love that. And thank you so much for answering that. And the reason why I put that question out there is because, again, I've known Adam for a while, and I know some of the clients that he worked with, and I've seen some of his results, amazing results. But the thing is that, I'll be honest, guys, I mean, as much as they would love to take care of every single Nifty member, they both know that they can't work with everybody, right? Because again, it's like a partnership, and they they want this kind of, they have this kind of accountability, but they expect these things from their clients, just like we expect them to deliver as well. And so when you guys are looking out there for different marketing companies, and if they just kind of say yes to everything, you got to think about it, right? You got to think about things. And if they don't care how you're handling these leads that are coming in or talking to these patients, or if these companies don't care that you're wondering what your front office staff is saying, what your assistants are saying, then you got to think back, right? Like, why aren't they demanding or wanting you to make sure that you have everything tightened up there, right? Just think about it there. And so again, I wanted to highlight that because again, you guys work with a lot of dental professionals, a lot of practices out there, but you guys don't work with everyone because again, you know, you guys also have standards as well because you want like a win-win scenario here. So for those who are listening right now, hopefully you guys are getting a lot of information. I certainly am. But you know, if they want to reach out to you guys and work with you guys and have that, instead of having that hypothetical call, like that real call, Ryan, what's the best way? How do they get the ball rolling and just start that conversation?
Yeah, the absolute best thing that everyone can do, and it's also taking advantage of our Nifty deal, is you can go just to firegang.com/Nifty50, and that's Nifty 50. And you can go
we'll make sure we have that link in there for you guys. And hey, Adam, I'd like to just kind of throw out a challenge to you. You seem like the type, you seem like a betting man, a guy who likes challenges, right? So for any of these new clients, these Nifty members who are like, okay, all right, I get it. You know, I want to see what they can do, right? I'm just going to throw out a challenge. So for someone who wants to work with you guys, how long do you think that it would take for them to see some tangible, you know, like benefits or increases or results? What I want to throw a challenge.
Yeah, I mean,
what's a good time frame? Like, what could you?
The first few months.
I'm not saying do a guarantee.
Yeah.
I'm saying just like, you know, like, and I'm talking about obviously every practice is different, right? Just like every patient is different, every person is different. But let's say they come in, they're like, okay, Brian, Adam, all right, I watched the Facebook Live and I'm all in. You just tell me what to do. I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to go through the whole process. I'm going to make sure I do all the things that you guys tell me to do. If someone says they're all in and they're willing to do what it takes, how long does it take for them to get some tangible results?
I mean, we're making strides even in month one, but usually month 3 to 6 is typically what we say. That's depending on what we're working with, right? Because everyone can come from a different spot. They have a lot of their systems dialed in and they're a well-run practice. We're going to see quicker results, but if they're really struggling or they've never done any marketing or they're, you know, difficult to work with, you know, or whatever, then that may take a little longer. I'd say the worst case scenarios are usually around that 6-month mark.
Okay.
Usually, I mean, unless there's some weird situation, I can't think of what that.
Well, there you go. I just threw the gauntlet down, the 6-month challenge here, right, guys? If you look, guys, if you're watching here, you know, let's take the 6-month challenge here. You do these guys are the coaches here. They know what they're doing, right? Just like if Adam or Ryan walked in my practice and I diagnosed certain things, right? I'm just gonna say, hey, this is the plan to go. And if you want a healthier mouth and better smile, then you're gonna go with this plan, right? They buy in, we get there, right? They don't go, let me see here, let me go on YouTube and see that I can like maybe slap something on from CVS and fix my own tooth, right? No, they don't do that. They kind of buy in there. So look, guys, I mean, we're just throwing this out there. 6-month challenge here, right? Just jump on here. You listen to these guys. You take advantage of the Nifty deal. You listen to these guys, follow every little step, right? The challenge only works if it follows every step, right? You can't just do half things, right? Like you can't do that, right? It's kind of like you can't halfway. You can't just like brush only one side of the arch, right? And expect that everything. You can't do that, right? So reach out to these guys at Firegang, and you know what? I mean, I'm excited to see what kind of results people have. You know,
I mean, we've had Dr. C on. We've had a lot of people in the group that have posted their results. And I mean, your clients like even Dr. C. I mean, they started seeing results in like month 1, month 2. That DSO, you know, month 1. again, depending on where they're coming from, we could see immediate results. It just depends on, again, what we're working with. And, typically it's 6 months or usually like worst case.
And you know what? So Ryan, I mean, when someone comes in and you guys kind of do that assessment, I mean, you guys will know fairly quickly, and you guys are pretty honest about it, right? You can say, "Hey, doc, look, you got things dialed in. I think we're good." Or, "Hey, doc, we got to work on a few things until we really take off." So is that something that you guys kind of sit down and talk them through, or so that they're not in the dark?
Oh yeah, it's always something that we assess at the very beginning to really look at this. And sometimes I go through our questions and we dig into it and get really deep into all the data and everything they can tell me. And I say, you know what, this is going to take a fair amount of time, but we're going to get you there. Let's just trust the process. And it's just the reality of it. I mean, I've sometimes talked to guys who have don't even have a website and they're a startup, and that's totally fine, right? If you're a startup, but it's going to take a little bit longer than if you're a 25-year-old practice that's been there forever and already have a website that's ranking #1 on Google, right? There's a very big difference. So we just look at that and make a reasonable judgment.
I love it. So Adam, before we jump off here, I want to give you kind of the last words for those who are watching and kind of learning about, what to look for as far as working with marketing companies and actually what makes you guys different. Leave us with something before we jump off here to all the Nifty members who've been tuning in and listening to us.
I mean, I would say that our integrated approach is the most advanced and in-depth on the planet. There's no question. In fact, you can go back and look at and read some of my books that I've put out over the years. Put out 3 now. We got a new one that's going to hit in a few months. But I talk about our integrated approach, and I've been talking about that for, I don't know, at least 5 years now. And it's funny because now we're starting to hear some of our competitors use the same language, but it's not the same. I mean, again, we employ dental coaches. We partner with analytic companies. We're aligning the right metrics from ourselves to the practice and helping to drive revenue. And that's something that it's a further evolution of a marketing company. That's the only thing I could say is that there's nobody else doing it like this.
Now, Adam, if people reach out, will you mail them a free copy of the book?
They're going to get a free copy of the book through the Nifty deal.
Oh, there you go, guys.
Yep.
I mean, there you go. Just for taking advantage of that and reading that book. And when's the next book coming out? I didn't even know you were coming up with another book.
Yeah, it's being worked on. In fact, when we hop off this call, I got to run a few things by you on it. But so don't hop off. But when we are done with this recording.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll have to needle you on throwing in those books too. But Adam, again, thank you so much. Ryan, very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for all the knowledge. We'll definitely have to drag you back on here again. And those who are watching, take advantage of the Nifty deal. I'll put everything in the comments section, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.